We all have those big goals, right? The ones that feel miles away. Writing a book, getting healthy, learning a new skill. We get fired up with motivation, make grand plans, and then life happens. The motivation fades, the grand plans feel overwhelming, and we're back where we started, maybe feeling a little more defeated. What if I told you the secret to lasting change wasn't about massive action, but about something almost ridiculously small? Something you can do in less than 2 minutes. This isn't about hacks or quick fixes. This is about the quiet power of tiny habits and how they can fundamentally rewire who you become. This tiny shift in perspective, it changed everything for me. It's a journey I want to share with you, from feeling stuck and overwhelmed to finding real, sustainable progress. Join me. Let's explore this simple but powerful idea. It might just be the missing piece you've been searching for. There was a time not so long ago when the gap between who I wanted to be and who I actually was felt like an unbridgeable chasm. I had these grand visions for myself, the kind of person who wakes up early and meditates, who writes every day, who stays consistently active and healthy, the ideal me. And then there was the reality. Snooze buttons on repeat, half-finished projects gathering digital dust, gym memberships gathering literal dust. Sound familiar? I'd get these bursts of motivation, these intense waves of, this is it, I'm finally going to change. I'd set ambitious goals, an hour at the gym every morning, 1,000 words a day, a perfectly organized digital life. And for a few days, maybe even a week, I'd white-knuckle my way through it, fueled by sheer willpower. But willpower, as we all know, is a finite resource. It's like trying to hold back the tide with a single bucket. Eventually, exhaustion sets in. The old habits, comfortable and familiar, would pull me back into their current. Shame would creep in, whispering insidious things like, "See, you knew you couldn't do it." This cycle of intense effort, followed by inevitable failure, felt deeply personal, like some fundamental flaw in my character. Why could other people seem to effortlessly build these positive habits while I constantly struggled? It wasn't until I stumbled upon the work of James Clear and his book Atomic Habits that a fundamental shift began to occur in my understanding of change. It wasn't about the grand gestures, the monumental efforts. It was about something far more subtle, far more persistent, the power of tiny, incremental improvements. Clear introduces this concept with profound simplicity. Getting 1% better every day doesn't seem like much, but over time, those tiny gains compound in remarkable ways. Just like compound interest in finance, small habits build upon themselves, leading to exponential growth. Conversely, a 1% decline every day leads to a significant erosion of your progress. But the real game changer for me wasn't just understanding the math of compounding. It was the idea of making habits so ridiculously easy that you almost couldn't say no. This is where the 2-minute rule comes in. The 2-minute rule states that when you're starting a new habit, it should take you less than 2 minutes to do. Sounds counterintuitive, right? How can something so small possibly lead to significant change? That's what I initially thought. If I wanted to exercise, surely I needed to do a proper workout, not just 2 minutes of jumping jacks. If I wanted to write a book, a few sentences weren't going to cut it. But the brilliance of this rule lies in its ability to overcome the initial friction associated with starting something new. Our brains are wired to resist effort, especially when the reward feels distant. The 2-minute rule bypasses this resistance by making the initial step so incredibly easy that there's almost no mental barrier to entry. I remember I wanted to get back into reading more consistently. My grand plan was to read for an hour every night before bed, and for a few nights I did. But then tiredness would kick in, or something more immediately appealing would grab my attention, and my ambitious reading goal would fall by the wayside. Then I applied the 2-minute rule. My new habit was read 1 page before bed. That's it. 1 single page. It felt almost silly, too easy to even count. But here's the magic. On most nights, once I started reading that 1 page, the momentum would carry me. I'd read another page and then another, and before I knew it, I'd read for 15 or 20 minutes. On the nights when I was truly exhausted, reading just that 1 page was a victory in itself. I maintained the identity of someone who reads every day. This wasn't about the quantity in the beginning. It was about establishing the identity. As James Clear says, your habits are how you embody your identity. By consistently performing that tiny action, I was casting a vote for the kind of person I wanted to become, a reader. Think about one big goal you have right now. What is the absolute smallest version of that action you could consistently do for just 2 minutes? This principle applies to almost anything. Want to meditate? Meditate for 1 minute. Want to start exercising? Do 2 push-ups. Want to learn a new language? Learn 1 new word. Want to eat healthier? Prepare 1 healthy component for your next meal. The point is to make the starting point frictionless. Once you've started, it's much easier to continue. Think of it like launching a rocket. The most energy is required to break free from gravity. Once you're in orbit, the journey becomes much smoother. Our minds often play tricks on us. They convince us that we need to make massive leaps to see significant change. This can lead to procrastination and overwhelm. The 2-minute rule gently whispers a different truth. Consistent small steps, even seemingly insignificant ones, are the most reliable path to lasting transformation. This isn't about productivity hacks. It's about building self-trust. Each tiny habit you successfully implement is a small promise you make to yourself and keep. Over time, these kept promises build a powerful sense of agency and belief in your ability to change. The voice of self-doubt starts to quieten down because you have concrete evidence of your progress, no matter how small. For years, I struggled with procrastination on creative projects. The sheer scope of what I wanted to create would feel paralyzing. I'd spend more time planning and researching than actually doing. Applying the 2-minute rule to my writing was a revelation. My initial goal wasn't to write for hours, but simply to open my laptop and type 1 sentence. 1 single sentence. The resistance vanished, and more often than not, that 1 sentence would turn into a paragraph, then a page, and sometimes even more. The key was to lower the barrier to entry so significantly that inaction became the harder choice.
What is one area of your life where you feel stuck or overwhelmed by the thought of change? How could you apply the 2-minute rule to take the very first incredibly small step? The beauty of this approach is its sustainability. Life will always throw curveballs. There will be days when you're tired, stressed, or simply don't feel like it. On those days, the pressure to stick to an ambitious goal can lead to feelings of guilt and abandonment of the habit altogether. But committing to just 2 minutes feels manageable, even on the toughest days. It allows you to maintain the streak, to reinforce your identity, and to avoid the slippery slope of breaking the chain. So ditch the overwhelming pressure of grand transformations. Embrace the power of the tiny habit. Find your own 2-minute version of the change you want to see. It might just be the most significant step you ever take. The most profound changes often begin with the smallest actions. It's in that consistent effort, that gentle persistence, that true and lasting freedom is found. This week, I invite you to identify one area where you want to see change. Then ask yourself, what is the absolute smallest action I can take in that direction that will take less than 2 minutes? Commit to doing that one tiny thing every single day. Notice how the resistance fades. Notice the small sense of accomplishment. And trust in the compounding power of those 2 minutes. Thank you for joining me on the Freedom Equation. May your tiny habits lead to extraordinary freedom. Protect your peace.